Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 93. We're both very joyous, sat here in onesies. If you're listening to this on iTunes, you won't be able to see the fact that we're both in onesies, which is a shame. Maybe hop on over to YouTube and check out our onesies. We're in onesies. Rachel, why are we in onesies again?
Because a couple of weeks ago, I was in a onesie in my what was then a new my new fox outfit, and you said that you had a crocodile one.
Ah, yes.
I think someone on Twitter said, "Oh, you should record the next podcast in onesies," and we actually forgot to do that. So we got reminded of it. So
he called us out, didn't he?
Was on Twitter.
Let's be honest, we got called out
on Twitter that mentioned it. So here we are. I am the athletic fox. You are the crocodile. Yes, here we are as professionals in our kids' outfits.
Yeah, what noise does a crocodile even make? Yeah, that stumped me. Like, a fox is obviously just like a dog, isn't it? Some kind of bark.
I wouldn't know. What does the fox say? Bing, 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 bing. You know that song? I'm just sounding like a dickhead.
No, I don't know that song.
You don't know that song? Oh my god, okay, you're gonna have to Google that song. It's called What Does the Fox Say?
Oh.
Because you know, like, all animals, ducks go quack, cows go moo, sheep go bah.
Yeah.
What did the fox say? What does the fox say?
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know. That's the thing, I don't know what a crocodile does.
Very random. I've got another random thing, actually, right? So I was just driving home from work, and I've had a couple of very, very long days here as I wrap up. Obviously, I'm heading off to Europe. And I got on my Spotify, and I've got like this playlist which I play now and again. It's like full of like random 80s tunes, which kind of like, you know, I can kind of sing along to and stuff. And this theme tune, one particular theme tune came on, and I was like, fuck yeah, I love this song. And I thought, you know what?
What is it?
If we had a theme tune to this podcast, this would be it. Hit it.
Yeah! Oh, I'd sing along right now if I could. I'm so bad with 80s music.
Oh, I love it.
I was born in the 80s, so I hate it. Through the danger zone, I went through the danger zone.
I can't believe thousands of people are going to hear us sing. It's terrible.
Anyway,
I love the tune. It's now our new theme tune.
Before this turns into bad karaoke.
God, we haven't even had a drink.
I have.
Can you imagine through a glass of wine, or a few glasses of wine or a beer? Terrible.
It's 7 a.m. I've already had 3 gin and tonics.
Well, look, I have to say it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon here. I have overdosed on a coffee today. I've had 4, which is 2 more than I usually would. So
that is not like you, Rachel, guy.
Yeah, I have to say, like, it's time for me to go on holiday, I think. But yeah, it's been a very busy couple of days here. So I've just got to remove my fox hood here. I'm getting a bit hot, although it is the middle of winter. My onesie's a particularly thick one, and I know you're freezing there in the UK coming into summer, but yours is a skinny onesie.
Yeah, it's because I'm a skinny mini. I'm all slim and svelte.
What's news?
I don't really know, really. I just have no idea, to be honest. We've only recorded this podcast like a week in between because you're going away. So not a huge amount has changed in my life. I can't remember if on last week's show I mentioned that I now have all my seminars from the Lane Norton Tour in the learning zone of my website. So if you go to bencoomber.com, you can now listen to all the Lane Norton Tour content from me. You can't listen to the stuff from Lane. You'll have to buy that off him. That's his content. That's his kind of rights to sell it. So you can hear all my talks on there. And someone asked me the other day, they said, Ben, I can't afford to buy all of them. Which one would you recommend the most? And that was a great question. And for me, there's a talk on there called Building Performance from the Inside Out. And I personally think that this talk is just it's literally essential for so many people to understand their health on an intricate level. And this talk looks at if you have any symptoms or any issues or anything wrong with your body, or you want to increase its performance in whatever capacity you can, this talk talks about how you can strip your diet right back to the bare essentials, work out intolerances, how to build the intolerances back in, how to know when these tolerances are causing a potential reaction, how to build a diet for the future. And then when we're looking at the gut and the immune system, how do we actually fix the gut and the immune system? So I've got a 7 supplement repair protocol, and I'll talk you through it and why. And when you buy the talk, you get all the research papers that I kind of like indicate as, you know, this is like the kind of primary 1 or 2 studies that I'm looking at for this kind of data. So I just think it's so powerful, whether you're a coach or you're a normal individual, to take your diet right back to its basic roots and say, right, let's be really critical. Let's look at everything in my diet. Let's look at everything that could be a problem. Let's build it back up again, and let's almost shape my diet from now right into the future. I just think that's really, really important. The other talks were on fat loss and detoxification, recovery methods, and then optimizing the female hormone cycle. So how you might manipulate certain macronutrients around the cycle, how you would change training. And then I talk about what I do to get a female's legs lean if they're coming up to like a competition, or they just generally want to improve the leanness of their legs compared to their torso, which is a really common problem.
Awesome. So, yeah. What was that first one called again? The one that you thought was the most important?
Building performance from the inside out.
Awesome. And that's on your website, bencoomber.com.
Ay caramba, yeah. And talking of cool content, Body Type Nutrition also has its own shop. And that might be worth checking out as well. You can also get those videos there and more. And I've uploaded loads of audio files as well. I've uploaded audios on supplementation, how to coach or how to build a diet for a vegetarian and a vegan. They're all audio. But yeah, lots of cool stuff. bencoomber.com learning zone.
Awesome.
Ooh! So
you've been a very busy boy. Sounds good. Well, I have no news to report other than the fact that I'm flying to Marbella tomorrow, and I'm very much looking forward to a little bit of downtime.
Awesome.
So it's going to be good.
Which means you'll get really creative. Which means you'll get really creative. I always get mega creative when I go on holiday and get loads of ideas, and you come back with a to-do list as long as my left leg.
That is exactly right. You know, I actually do my best work whilst I'm overseas. So I'm actually away for a month, from the 3rd of July to the 3rd of August. I'm out of the country. So I'm going to be in Spain and in France. And you're absolutely right. I do my best content creation over there. I get so many ideas. I meet new people. I talk to people. I talk to old friends. And it just gives me a fresh head on things. And, you know, I think sometimes when you're in your environment, you get caught up on the day-to-day stuff and stuck in your routine. So it is very hard to break it and, you know, get creative. Even if you have just a day off sitting in your office, it is really hard. So yeah, I'm looking forward to creating my new long to-do list as long as your left leg.
Right then, we've already given the audience 8.5 minutes of drivel. So we'll conquer these questions. You start, and I'm going to blow my nose.
Okay. That's very nice, Benny. Well, I have to say, in advance, guys, I apologise for our singing. I know it's terrible. Anyway, dear Ben and Rachel, loving the podcast. You guys are putting out some great information, and I look forward to continue to learn from you. My question, with a little bit of a background. I'm a meat eater, and my girlfriend is a vegetarian but eats fish and eggs, just no animal meats for intolerance reasons. My goals are general strength building, and I train in weightlifting 3 times a week and also train Krav Maga weekly. We are both fit and healthy and eat a very balanced diet with at least 8 portions of vegetables a day. She cooks most of our meals, so I eat little meat I get my proteins from other sources. We sometimes use fake meat like corns or other brands. I know the real meat is far superior, but can you tell me what is in these products that could be bad for my diet, and specifically how it could be detrimental for performance? Are they just full of crap that I should avoid? Keep up the good work, and I hope you can shed some light on this for me. Cheers, Lauren.
So, I mean, this is quite a cool question actually, because I wouldn't say strong views about vegetarians and vegans, but you know, I'm very forthcoming with those opinions, because I definitely don't feel for an awful lot of people I would describe as optimal. Now, the proteins that you get in what is essentially corn and other type proteins have definitely improved over the years. I'm going to be honest. Like, where my mum used to be a vegetarian, she used to eat this stuff like 10-15 years ago, and it was full of just all sorts. Unfortunately, I suppose the science of fake meat has improved, and the products have improved. So I've got the ingredients in front of me, did a bit of research on this. So the most common form of fake protein is corn. That's probably like the biggest brand in the UK. I know corn are in other countries as well, because it's a trademarked type of protein. And that protein is commonly called mycoprotein, which I suppose already it sounds a bit crazy, but it's made by adding oxygen, nitrogen and glucose and minerals to a fungus. And this fungus is called Fusarium venetum. And that's essentially what it is. So we're kind of pimping this fungus. So straight away we could probably argue that because it's a fungus, it might not be good for a whole amount of people. Remember the Doug Kaufman podcast that I did, where we talked about fungal infections, parasites, that kind of stuff. This could potentially be problematic for those people. But you know, it's not too bad. So mycoprotein is made up of oxygen, nitrogen, glucose, minerals and a fungus, which really it's not bad. It's kind of the building blocks. It's kind of one ingredient, we could argue. And then that's mixed with free-range egg white, flavouring. We're not going to know what that is, so we kind of just have to guess and think that it's not going to be brilliant. Firming agents, again, what that does to the body, who knows. Calcium chloride and calcium acetate. So it's not, you know, it's not evil. It hasn't got any milk in it, hasn't got any wheat, hasn't got any gluten. It's obviously got eggs in it. There's going to be some bad stuff in there, but I definitely don't think it's as bad as it used to be. Would I want that to be someone's primary protein source? Not really. Like, if we can get, like you said rightly, that your partner will eat fish, would eat eggs, I'd want that to be the primary protein source. And then bringing this in, let's say for 1 serving a day of your 2 to 3 to 4 meals, then absolutely kind of perfect. But I probably wouldn't go much further than that, if I was honest. But I just don't see it as an evil anymore. I just think the products have improved quite considerably. But saying that, I would still read the ingredients of this stuff, because I know corn has a very versatile range these days, and they're creating all sorts of stuff like steak strips, and you've got to think how much versatility is there of this fungus that we're kind of pimping to create it into something without adding more and more and more and more and more to give it like a texture and a mouthfeel and a flavour, etc., of what is essentially real meat. So I get that, like, for example, chicken chunks can be very simple to make for this company. Mycoprotein, a little bit of flavour in, some egg and stuff, very simple. But as soon as you get a bit more complex, you could start to argue that the ingredients are going to reflect that and become a lot funkier.
I don't really have a lot to add here. I have to be honest. I don't really deal with many vegetarians. In fact, hardly any. You know, I've just launched a sports model project over here in Sydney, and I actually had 3 vegetarians who signed up for the program, and I've managed to convince them to start eating meat. Now,
that was funny. Easy.
Yeah, I know. Well, I basically said to them, they're not going to be able. Like, I've got 12 weeks with these girls to basically become a sports model, and to get that sports model body. Now, to do that, being a vegetarian, unless you're eating a fair bit of fish and eggs, it's very, very hard to do.
It is.
And these girls need to build a lot of muscle in a short space of time and lose a fair bit of fat in a short space of time. So I can't do that with somebody who's on a vegetarian diet. It's very, well, it can be done, but it's really, really difficult. And to be honest, I don't have the knowledge to do it. I'm not interested in vegetarianism. I'm certainly not interested in the vegan stuff. It's not what I believe to be a nutritious and healthy diet. So a lot of, most of the girls start eating small amounts of meat. And look, when you're converting from being a vegetarian back to being a meat eater, it has to be a very gradual process, particularly if you've been vegetarian for a long time. So I do have these girls they start on very, very basics of small amounts of chicken, adding more fish into their diet, so they're getting used to processing the protein, we do add in digestive enzymes. So it's a very slow process, but I'm very excited to say that these girls are doing really, really well. They're starting to feel a lot more energetic, obviously recovering a lot better from training, and just feel better in general. So that's that's sort of my take on vegetarians. I'll do everything that I can to try and educate the client to certainly get them eating one meal a day that is meat based.
It's definitely, the inclusion of enzymes is really important if you're increasing meat, because remember, the body would have down-regulated production of enzymes to break down proteins, or meat-based proteins, very heavy proteins, so they're just not going to have the capacity. So if someone that was veggie went and ate a big steak, that's going to sit really heavy on the gut. They're going to be probably bloated, feel uncomfortable, and maybe even a bit of pain. So bringing enzymes in, really important. And I suppose just to summarise, I'll be honest, I've never ever had as good results with my nutritional intervention with a vegetarian as I had with a meat eater. The whole protein thing, in terms of body composition and regulating so much physiological environments that we want to regulate, it's just so important for me. And I think the research is pretty concrete on it too.
I'd agree with that. I've had one lady, and she was a very experienced vegetarian. She was an ultra endurance athlete, and she took really, really good care of her diet. She did eat fish, and she did eat eggs, and she was very particular on her protein requirements at every meal. She made sure her meals were balanced, and I've never seen somebody put so much effort into a vegetarian meal plan. And I think that's what it takes. If you are going to be a vegetarian, it's not just a case of, oh, it's okay, I'm going to stop eating meat. You have to be very, very calculated on what everything that you eat.
I agree. Cool.
Awesome. Okay, next question. This is a really interesting one. So this is from Kate, and she's in Perth in Australia. So hello, Kate. Kate actually came to one of your Australian tour that you did with Phil Looney in February. And
no way. Course truth.
Yeah, and she's also one of my girls. She's in my Athletic Fox Blueprint in my membership site.
Cool.
So we know Kate very well, but she's got a really good question here. First of all, I would like to say thank you for being being a foundation for my change in health, fitness, lifestyle, and most importantly, nutrition. I've just started Ben's BTN Academy in April, and the coaching provided so far is already incredible. I'm writing today to ask you about your opinions on the AIP protocol. I have an autoimmune thyroid disorder called Graves' disease, in which my thyroid is overactive and my antibodies are currently 10 times higher than they should be. My GP has prescribed surgery as the only option to get this under control, given the level of antibodies fighting against my thyroid, which I'm not happy accepting that this is the only answer. The medication taken to fight the overactive thyroid comes with long-term health issues it cannot be taken for long periods of time. So the clock is ticking for me to find the answer. I've been following the Athletic Fox Blueprint, and I've listened to every podcast that you have ever done, which you provide me with such great resources for training and nutrition. The reason I asked this question now is that I listened to the podcast 2 weeks ago on thyroid and hormones, and have started to do some research into the AIP paleo protocol. Do you believe that this is a protocol that could potentially be the answer to many autoimmune problems relating to inflammation of the gut? I look forward to hearing from you, and would be so happy if I were to make it onto your fabulous podcast. Kate.
In short, yes. When we look at diet and nutrition and all the incredible practitioners that are doing amazing work in kind of the paleo world, and looking at people with autoimmune conditions and various diseases and symptomology, they're all in this kind of we'll call it the paleo camp for a reason, because it's kind of the most anti-inflammatory way to structure your nutrition that we know. And if all of these people are doing it for a reason, there's huge correlative data, even just anecdotally. But the research is catching up hugely anyway. Like, I've had arguments with practitioners before that have said, gluten intolerance, for example, doesn't have much reporting in the literature. And I'm like, it does. You're just searching for the wrong keywords. If you type in gluten intolerance into Google Scholar, you don't get an awful lot. But if you type in gluten-related disorders, which is one of the medical keywords for this, you start to get a whole lot more. So this kind of stuff is becoming way more mainstream. I just don't think we're looking in the right kind of places for it. But I mean, I've worked with several people with autoimmune related conditions, and straight away I strip it straight back to a paleo template. I test for things like nightshades, funguses, high histamine foods. There's loads of things that could potentially lead into this, and the problem is autoimmune related conditions are very difficult because it does, and there's no way to avoid it, make the diet very restrictive. And that's the hardest thing for the client, for the individual to accept and really get knuckled into this, because you are going to have a very restricted diet for a period of time, and you might have a very restricted diet for a long period of time depending on the severity of the damage, the type of condition you have, the type of inflammatory pathways which are being activated by these various different food sources. So that's probably the biggest challenge, and it's a challenge that I face with many people, the restrictions that these diets have to impose. But the problem is it's a fact of life. Like, everyone is given the body that they have. Some of us are more or less fortunate than others, and sometimes you just got to take a big cup of, well, this is the reality. I've got to deal with it. If I want to improve the situation, this is what I have to do. Or if I want the situation to carry on going, I can carry on living normally, but there's going to be a comeuppance, and that comeuppance might be that I have to have surgery, my health might deteriorate, etc. So yeah, I think the various autoimmune related protocols around the paleo world are very, very powerful, and it's exactly the route that I would take to deal with this condition. So Kate, I think you're on the right path 100%.
I'd say the same thing. With Graves' disease, so because it's an autoimmune disease, there are obviously a protocol like that is great. It does reduce inflammation. However, we are looking at a chronic disease here. And I know, like I was just chatting to Kate this morning, I know that she has had this problem since she got diagnosed when she was 17. So she's had the problem a fair few years. And sometimes with Graves' disease, it can get to the point where surgery is the only option. So I don't think we should necessarily remove that idea. And
sure,
you can have a better quality of life afterwards. It's not the be all and end all, and it's not nice surgery. But it's like, okay, I'm a physio, and I think of it this way: when somebody comes to me with a subluxing shoulder, or for example, knee pain, it may be an ACL reconstruction. What we do with that client, well, that patient, before they go into surgery, is that we have to make that knee or that shoulder as physically strong as we possibly can. Because after the surgery, it's better to have a stronger knee or a stronger shoulder than not bothering to train it prior to going into surgery. So when I see something like this, and we're talking about Graves' disease here, we try and repair it as much as we possibly can and put the person into the best state of health possible, so that if surgery is necessary, they have a very good base to go back to.
Yeah,
and then rebuild from.
With the surgery, do they cut out part of the thyroid or all of it and then control it with thyroxine?
Do you know what? I don't know. From what I can remember, it's only part of it.
Okay, it makes sense.
I wouldn't. Do you know what? I wouldn't know. I'd have to go and look it up.
Yeah, me too.
I only know this because a good friend of mine, his wife actually had surgery done a couple of years ago, and she tried everything, and this is why I'm trying to be on the medical side of it as well. She did try everything, and she tried everything from the holistic stuff to the spiritual stuff to the medical stuff. And for her thyroid got so bad that she did require surgery, and then her quality of life after that was phenomenal. So, I don't think that we should discard it completely, but I do think that, Kate, you're on the right path. And obviously, if you're in the Athletic Fox Blueprint, we don't have inflammatory foods in there. So, I do subscribe to a gluten-free lifestyle. It's very low dairy in the Athletic Fox Blueprint. I don't take dairy out completely unless you are intolerant to it. But yeah, Kate, definitely, I think that's something that you should perhaps start looking into.
Yeah, I mean, nutritional therapy is very powerful, but there's a huge amount of things that do need intervention, and then controlling with the nutritional intervention. So yeah, I mean, at no point was I discounting the surgery, but
No,
when we look at these kind of disorders, this is the best possible protocol we know at the moment as practitioners. This is our best guess, and it sounds horrible me saying guessing, but with all this stuff that we do as coaches, we are making a best guess. We're making an educated guess. A huge amount of this is not, fact by any means, and we make an educated guess, and hopefully, we get it right the majority of the time.
Absolutely. Awesome. Cool. Okay, next question. This question is from Ryan. Hi Ben, the podcasts are extremely interesting and informative. I have a few questions that I hope that you could clear up for me. I hear a lot about BCAAs by various people in the industry, and I've heard a lot of conflicting arguments. Some people say that they're a waste of money, whilst others say they are great to use whilst doing fasted cardio. Secondly, I love this question. Secondly, how do some bodybuilders still eat crap and have great physiques? Keep up the great work, Ryan.
Yeah, interesting one, Ryan. I suppose we'll answer your latter question because it's probably the simplest to answer. And, bodybuilders, especially at the elite level, can eat a huge amount of crap and still have great physiques because, well, most bodybuilders will follow and subscribe to a very calorie and macronutrient controlled diet, despite the fact that they're eating crap. So, there's a certain amount of physiology that is going to be taken well care of because they're following a macronutrient and calorie base. So their in and their out is taken care of, their protein requirements are taken care of, and the chances are they're getting a minimal amount of fat to support hormonal function, and they're recovering properly with carbohydrates despite them eating a perceived amount of crap. Other people might do the same and still not get as good results because they have poorer detoxification pathways. They might have inflammatory factors that cause them to feel bloated, retain water, have dysregulated physiological environments, just somewhere in the body. But really, all we're looking at here is genetic strength. That's why I've always said to people, if you see a bodybuilder saying something online, and these are, they're quite an elite bodybuilder, you've got to take what they say with the biggest pinch of salt possible because these guys are the genetic elite. That's why they're bodybuilders. They've got in the gym, they've started training, they've noticed that they grow quite quickly, they've noticed that they adapt to training well, they've trained more, they've trained harder, and then they've gone, hang on a second, do you know what, this stuff kind of works for me. I respond well. I reckon if I have a good crack at this, I've got a chance of making something of it. We look at Jay Cutler, for example, who's one of the best in the world at the moment. This guy is genetically brilliant. Granted, he's got a few supplements he might be taking, but genetically, he's still got a fantastic physique and a fantastic physiology for muscle gain. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't be in the position that he is, regardless of supplemental use. So, you've got to take that with a pinch of salt, but they would be my two key reasons why you can eat bad food and still have a good physique, really.
I think, one of the key things here is that as soon as you have more muscle as well, you can get away with eating. You can get away with eating more and getting away with it. And not to mention, most bodybuilders train freaking hard. These guys are in the gym for hours at a time. They'll be burning a lot of calories, and obviously, not to mention the special assistants and supplements that they may be using as well. So, when you do have an assisted athlete or an assisted bodybuilder who is taking some special supplements, that's not to say that they don't work hard. These guys are working really hard. So. Yes, you've got the genetics. Yes, they've got more muscle. They've got the work ethic. They may be using supplements, but generally speaking, these guys still work hard. But like Ben said, take it with a bit of a pinch of salt. What works for them is probably not going to work for you.
Sure, and I think you've got to be careful in the online domain, and this is definitely an argument that if it fits your macros comes across a lot, is that a lot of the time when you see bodybuilders talking about things online, talking about their nutrition or posting pictures on Instagram of what they're having for dinner, what they're not showing you is the good breakfast that they had, and the veggies and meat for lunch, and the veggies and meat for their afternoon snack or whatever, what they're posting, because it's way cooler and gets loads more interaction, is their Pop-Tarts, cake, plate of donuts, you know, whatever they've decided to almost binge on as their post-workout thing. So we get the perception that, you know, so much of this bodybuilder's diet is junk, where really it's probably only 10 to 20%, which is what If It Fits Your Macros looks at. It's a flexible way to eat to allow you to kind of bring things that you want into your diet with minimal, if any, kind of negative impact. So I think it's got to be taken with a pinch of salt. Like, why is this person, you know, posting these things? And I think the best backtrack of this for me was Scott Bapty, who's been on this show before. Great guy, big fan of Scott. We talk often. He's a fantastic guy. You know, in his earlier years of being a coach and teaching people and presenting himself online, like on Facebook and stuff, he would talk quite a bit about, you know, what he was having post workout. You know, Subway sandwich, Pop-Tarts, you know, things that would be considered bad or cheap foods. And a while back, a couple of months ago, maybe 6 months ago, he posted online. He sort of said, "Do you know what? I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to stop doing this because I feel that I'm presenting the wrong message." You know, I get questions from people saying, "Oh, you have a great physique. Is all you eat like Subway and Pop-Tarts and, you know, bad food?" And he's like, "No, but I'd got into this habit of kind of presenting that this was almost like a cool nutritional thing." And he sort of said, "You know, I'm not going to be doing this anymore. I don't think it's the right message. I think most people need to eat, you know, majority of whole one ingredient foods, because that's what equals health. That's what equals habit change." And I you know, he got so much applaud for that, and rightly so, because, you know, it doesn't help anyone. All it does is create controversy and confusion by a coach posting the fact that they had, I don't know, a plate of donuts for dinner, and then people, you know, even their clients are going, "Well, how come you get a plate of donuts for dinner and you can still have a six-pack," and all this kind of stuff. So I just don't think it's helping the majority of the industry. You know, and I spoke about If It Fits Your Macros with Rachel a couple of episodes ago about my opinion and where it fits in. And the majority of people need to learn how to eat. Period. They need to learn how to eat, cook food, what equates to essential health and well-being. And then once that's done, once that foundation's built, once you have your psychology and your mental aspect of food sorted, then become more flexible, then learn how to bring, you know, we'll call them cheat foods, whatever, you know, not as optimal foods in. But, you know, you have to go through these steps first. And that's why our message on this show is consistently about whole one ingredient foods, learning how to cook, embracing real food, and then bringing in the other stuff.
I concur.
I suppose to
branched chain amino acids.
Yeah, so this is always an interesting topic, because I think BCAAs, well, probably like 2 years ago, and then back another probably about 15 years, we kind of saw BCAAs as a very golden supplement. You know, we had to be on them. You know, we had to stop muscle breakdown. And I think, you know, our understanding of sports supplements just generally come from some kind of research. There is some, you know, research that stimulates our thought process, and then we start to make recommendations. Then those recommendations start to get blown out of the water a little bit, and people start to mistrude them. You know, coaches that are not quite as honest with the facts, I suppose. But I think our understanding of BCAAs now is that you might need them, but the chances are that they're not essential for you in any way in your diet. Now, we could argue that to cover every base possible within the training window, you might take some BCAAs to make sure that there is a high amount of leucine in the blood. There's BCAAs that can be converted as an energy source for training, that will prevent any possible catabolic breakdown of muscle tissue. But remember, training is catabolic anyway. Like when you are training, you are in a catabolic state. You're in a muscle breaking down state, because that is the aim of the training. And it's only afterwards that you can potentially become anabolic. So if your minimum protein requirements are being met, let's say you're eating, I don't know, 250 grams of protein, which is, you know, a fair amount throughout the day, which is kind of how much I eat, you're going to hit it. You're not going to need any BCAAs. But the only thing that I would subscribe to is, I think if there's any semblance of benefit from BCAAs, it would be within the workout window. So I take BCAAs and lactate buffering agents when I train, and it's almost like a fail safe for me, but it's probably literally 2 to 5%, if that, that we're kind of looking at here. If the protein requirements are met, if your energy requirements are met, the need for BCAAs would be very low, unless you're in a non-optimal protein environment, unless you're taking protein sources that have a non-optimal amount of leucine, and you could argue that supplementing with BCAAs or leucine, let's say 1 to 2 hours after that meal to make sure we got maximal muscle protein synthesis, would be of benefit. So that's kind of my opinion. But for especially when young people email me, message me, and they're like, Ben, I'm taking all these supplements, what's worthwhile, what's worth throwing away? And for most young people that, I'm going to generalize and say a lot of young people probably don't have an awful lot of money, or money that they would want to spend on a lot of supplements. I would say to people, look, get a whey protein, if you want the flexibility of your protein intake. Grab a fish oil, grab a multivitamin. If you're training hard, take some form of magnesium and zinc supplementation, and probably leave it at that. You probably don't need any more. If you've got some more money, you could maybe buy some lactate buffering agents, a few other bits, but there's not a huge amount that's really proven in the science.
Eat real food, train hard, and sleep.
Ay caramba. Real. That's it.
That's it. Okay, next question. This is from Scott. Hi, Ben. I have a question for Rachel and yourself on the podcast. My friend is doing a charity cycle around Scotland in memory of his mum in July this year. He will be cycling for 12 days, covering 1,000 miles, camping out by himself and carrying all of his own equipment. What sort of nutritional advice would you have for someone doing this? What would you say are the must-haves in his... I can't read this word. It must be a Scottish word.
No. They're called panniers. They're what you put on the side of your bike, like either side of the back wheel, to store the food in or store stuff in.
You can totally tell I'm not a cyclist, right?
No.
You could have just said side bags for the bike, like saddle bags. There you go. They're called saddle bags.
She's got some of them.
Pardon? Did you just add saddle bags? Oh, funny.
Penny drop.
Sorry. Would you say that he'd have to have chocolate, coconut oils, oats, bananas, and energy gels? Obviously, a high energy requirement each day and some serious recovery. Nutrition, and physical recovery is needed. Maybe even some TDT. Any advice would be gratefully received. Love the podcast, and Rachel is a great addition to the show. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Scotty.
Thanks, Scott. Talking of TDT, a team that we supported just did Race Across America. What were they called? The Spinhalers. We gave them a load of TDT to use while they cycled across America. So this is 12 days of pretty much non-stop cycling to get across America. It's an absolutely crazy event. They're in a team, and we gave them recovery spray and performance spray, and we gave them very strict directions on how to use it, the timing, and they said they're now finishing the write-ups for us at the moment, and they've done some video footage as well for us. I'm really excited to see it, because it's just a huge step to see the products that I created in an environment like that. It's a very extreme environment, and if it can help that, that geeks me out big time. So they were using the recovery spray every time a rider came off the bike. They were using performance spray in 45-minute intervals on the bike, and they said it was, the products were absolutely fantastic. So hopefully I'll be able to say more when we get the reviews. But 100% magnesium is going to be so essential if you're on a high volume, ride. I think we even mentioned this on the last podcast between me and Rachel.
We did.
You need to replace magnesium and zinc. We don't get enough in our diet. We know that the body needs a minimum of about 400 to 500 milligrams, depending on how much you train and the intensity. So I think magnesium and zinc is essential, and I'll put my hand on my heart and say transdermal absorption is way more effective than oral. So Definitely. But in terms of the actual fuel source, I think what's key here is understanding the previous diet of the individual going into the event, because for me, from an endurance perspective, I always want to try and optimize that individual to utilize fat very effectively. So I would start to bring more and more fats into their diet as they're training and as they're building up to the race, because we know that if you're more fat adapted, you'll be more efficient at burning energy in a consistent long cycle, and also you seem to, and this is what the research has indicated, utilize carbohydrate more effectively when you are more fat adapted. So I would train the body to use the fat effectively as a fuel. Your intensity isn't going to be really high because you're covering so much distance, so it seems like it's going to be moderate intensity, you know, very long. Which for a person that's well trained is still going to be fairly low intensity because their heart rate is going to stay pretty low. So I would personally, leading up to the race, be fueled much more on fat-based foods. So I would have a very fatty breakfast, fatty snacks, fat on the first like hour of the bike, so maybe like coconut oil, bit of chocolate, and then I would start to bring carbs further into the day. So once you've been on the bike like an hour or two, then start bringing carbs into the mix, and you'll just utilize your fat and energy systems more effectively. You're always going to struggle to control blood sugar levels and glucose turnover and glycogen out of the muscles when you're leading into the race on carbs and then carbs on the bike. And that's just experience that I've had with riders that I've coached. It's not to say that it's not effective. Of course it is. If you put a fuel source into the body will use it. But I've had much more effect at delaying fatigue and time of performance by trying to be fat adapted and then bringing carbs onto the bike, and then after the training bout is finished, really getting loads of carbs on board again, and then waking up the next day and then being more fat dominant in the morning of the race again, or the event.
Cool. I have no further questions, Your Honour.
Sweet, mate.
That's it. I'm out of questions.
That's good. We went on for like an hour and 10 minutes last week.
I know. We're up to 50 minutes now, or just under. We're doing well.
40 minutes. Remember, you're looking at Skype.
Oh yes. Okay.
And we babble on a bit before we start the show.
We do have a bit of a chat. We
do. Right. In that case, if you want to find more info about me, it's bencoomber.com. If you want to find more info about Rachel, it's athleticfox.com. Thank you very much for listening to the show. I asked last week, if you have left a review on iTunes, if you could be a superstar and leave that same review on a platform called Stitcher. That's stitcher.com. We're now on that platform, and again, like iTunes, for us to get recognised on that platform, which can be used on Android and all sorts of devices. That's why I've put it on there. You know, for us to get recognised, we need reviews, we need ratings. Otherwise, we'll never make any headway on it for new listeners to find us. So if you could do that, it'd be greatly appreciated. And please share the show with your friends and family. Let's try and educate some people. As for the next person on this show, I will be interviewing a lady called Rhonda Patrick, who is a very clever person because she's a doctor. That means she has at least 10 times more brain cells than me, so hopefully some semblance of knowledge will come out of that show. But until next time, that's ciao from me.
And ciao from me. Thanks for listening.
Have a great time in Europe, Rachel, and we will see you on your return.
Thank you. See you soon.
See you later, everyone. Ciao. Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 92. I want to start this show with a big bang, and I think if I ask this question, I'm going to get the intro I want. CT, what does Junior Miles say?